Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where today I'm going to be your tour guide as we enter the tech room. As we take a quick spin around the room to help orientate ourselves, you might notice that there's not really a lot of space here. In fact, I actually measured it and it's roughly 3.5 meters by 4 meters in size. So yeah, I had to get quite creative with how I stored all the stuff that you're going to see today. And on top of all of that, this is pretty much where I've spent most of my time over the last 1.5 years, as this has become my work from home office as well. So finding a point when everything was nice and tidy to show it all off was quite hard. And where else can we start but the main desk? This is where everything starts and ends, as I write all my scripts here and then I edit them. And this is the machine I'm using right now. It might look like a fridge, as some people have said, but it is actually my PC. And the specs are still quite old, I've not had a chance to upgrade it at all. But I have gotten a new monitor as well as the Yeti X microphone, which I'm using now, and that is my work laptop. I can't really say too much about its specs, but I will say it is an absolute beast of a machine. It blows my desktop out the water. And there we have my own personal laptop, which is definitely not a beast. It's a 2013 13-inch laptop, but it was pretty high spec when I bought it, 8 years ago now. I think it's pretty clear to say that most of my money goes onto the retro stuff rather than the modern stuff, though I will have to upgrade it soon. Now to the left of my desk, as you can see, we have my Amiga game collection. And this ranges from small to big box to bigger boxes, and yet they are pretty much stuffed in here wherever they can. And at the very top of the bookcase is some computers, and this includes my Amiga 500 Plus, my 1200, and the two C64s. And to the right of the desk, well, we have another bookcase with some Atari St games and a load of PC titles as well. We'll see a lot of PC games as we go, including a little bit further up where we'll find all the expansion packs. I had to put them somewhere. And at the very end there, that is some Acorn Archimedes games. And of course this bookcase had to have something on top as well, which is a load of 8-bit machines, which we will look at in more detail in a little bit. And down the side of this bookcase we have some handhelds. We've got the GP32, the Atari Lynx, and just below it is a Game Gear, which I actually recapped a little while ago, so it does actually work quite nicely, as well as they ever did, as well as a few more that I'll have to put up at some point, including the Evercade and a PSP. Now these are actually sat on top of disc boxes, because you end up with a lot of loose discs, such as one for the GVP, various software for the Acorn Archimedes, PC, even Amiga boot discs. And these boxes themselves are sat on top of these drawers, which I use to try and organise stuff. It's not always the best organisation, as this drawer has that blue SCSI that I managed to break, some spare SD cards, and the controller for the CD-TV. Over here we've got controllers for various Nintendo consoles, including the N64 and the Wii. But this isn't the only way that I tend to store stuff. If we take a quick spin around the room, we'll find this PC, which that bit at the front is a door. And yes, we've even got a DVD drive in here. But more importantly, just to the left of it, we've got these boxes. This one is filled with mostly labelled power packs, like the 600XL, the GDX, and various other ones. Behind it we have even more power packs, mostly for computers, as you can see the big chunky Amiga ones. Now there's 4 more boxes of things. This is where I tend to keep all of the video cables. Again, I've tried to label them all so I know what they're for, unless they've got something that makes it very obvious. But don't worry, we're not going to go into all of these boxes in detail, as that would take ages, as some of these are pretty full. Instead I want to show you what's just above here, which is this big space. Look at it, so much space. Now this used to have another machine, which I've moved out the way, but I needed the space here to be able to work. I use this for soldering, I use it for filming. As we can see, I've got a camera stand here, I've got the lighting. This is what I've been trying to do to make things a lot easier on myself, and there you can see the RISC PC 600 has been moved over to the side. And when I start to lay out some of the collection that was on top of the bookcases, you can see why having this space is useful, as I can now show stuff off much easier, including the Spectrum Plus that we upgraded not too long ago. We've also got the Plus 2, the ZX81 and the original ZX. And as we continue to look at 8-bit machines, we have the Atari 600XL that we upgraded for the channel, which has 64 kilobytes of RAM. But we also have this Amstrad Ppc 464. I've not used it too much for the channel, but that will have to change. Which is true of the 600XL, I've really not used this anywhere near as much as I thought I would. I'll have to change that. And our next destination is just to the left, where we've got this HP Compact. This is actually one of the more recent additions to the collection, as it's a Pentium 4 XP machine. And it's also, as you can tell, a small form factor that I've actually upgraded recently as well. So it might not look it, but this thing does play games very well, or at least the games from that era, as it has an SSD inside, it's got an Odyssey sound card, and it's also got a 7450 ATI graphics card. The balancing act, trying to find something that would be powerful enough to play those games from that time, but also not use too much actual power. Coincidentally, all these machines are connected to a HP monitor and keyboard. I hadn't planned it, but it seems to have worked out. And what about those other machines? Well, let's go down. First up we have the Mcintyre 486. This was upgraded from a 486 SX 25MHz CPU up to a 66MHz DX2. So it's pretty cool right now, and I don't think I'll need to do any further upgrades on it. And if you're interested in that upgrade, then I did do a video on it way back in 2019. The Pentium 1 is in the middle, and this has pretty much remained unchanged from the last time. It's still got a Voodoo 1 card, it's still got a Pentium 1 200MHz CPU, and it's still running off an SD card. It's pretty much fine as it was, and that's why it's not really needed much work. This final case used to have an AMD 64 in it, but that motherboard wasn't all that great, so instead it's now housing that Pentium 3 computer that had that lovely white case, which unfortunately had a few problems of its own. You leant on it in the wrong way and the machine itself would cut out. So it had to go, unfortunately. It does still have those two Voodoo 2 cards in SLI, but I'm now using an Nvidia GeForce 4 Ti as the main graphics card. So it's ready to take on those demanding 3D games, as well as ones that were designed with Glide in mind. These are all hooked up through this KVM switch, as well as this audio switcher. This makes it easy for me to be able to select which machine I want to play, and with a few splitters I've even made it easier for me to be able to record from them as well. And what's that I spy just off to the left? Yes, it's the Amstrad Ppc 640. This machine received a lot of upgrades this year, and there is definitely a video that you can watch all about that. It might have been a bit loud and hard. And what's that behind it? Why, it's more PC games. This is two bookcases that are jam-packed full of games, and hopefully this time I've managed to get all the labels so they're the right way round. I know that annoyed more than a few of you last time, and as you can see I've had to get very creative with how I've managed to put all of the games on these shelves. On top of all those big boxes, there's also a shelf that's dedicated to the DVD style cases and another one that's just jewel cases. And as you might have come to expect, we've got hardware at the top of these bookcases. The smaller one has the BBC Micro, as well as the Philips G7000. And the other one is a bit of a mishmash of hardware, as we've got the Pong Machines, we've got that Spark drive, and the Electronic Detective. And down the side of the bookcase, well, we've got the light guns, or at least some of them. I've not been able to fit all of them on here, but there is a nice selection. And just under those we've got the Amiga CD32 and the CD-TV. But next to it, well, there we have a new machine, at least for me, the Atari Jaguar, which has been on permanent loan from a mate. And underneath that, well, that's the 3DO. I really do need to do more with both of those machines. The rest of the consoles live just below that lot. And here we have the shelf of the Master System. We have a Master System 1, 2, base converter, and the Game Gear converter. And underneath there you'll find the Dreamcast and the Sega Saturn. And that dongle at the front, that's for a wireless pad. I can use it on this and the PC, which is quite cool. and across from those we have Nintendo hardware. We've got two N64s, one is my original one I got back in the day, and the other one is a Japanese unit that I use for NTSC games. And that was actually provided by one of the kings of Japanese computer hardware, Re-Enthused. And above that we have the NES, which I think that cart slot needs a bit of work. We've got a GameCube, and we've got the Wii. Its next door neighbour is probably one of the oldest bits of hardware I've got, the Fairchild Channel F, which in the last tour video I said might have been broken, but I actually managed to get it running and it's actually quite interesting. So hopefully I'll do a video on it when I get a few more games. Sat on top of it is the Amstrad GX4000. Moving down we find the PlayStations. There's a PS1, a PS2 and the G-Con 45. And that little dongle coming out of the PS2, that's a wireless controller. And it allows me to use an Xbox One controller with the PS2. Yes, finally I have a decent controller for the PlayStation. And quickly moving along, we have those Pong machines. They are a bit stuffed in there, mostly because I got nowhere else for them to go. And if they look dusty, it's because the old curtains started to disintegrate and covered the whole area with crap. I have been clearing it away, but it seems to keep coming back. And just above those machines, well, we've got the original Xbox and we've got the Atari 2600 Junior. And just behind there you can see another light gun, that's for the Binatone Pong machine. And talking of light guns, I've actually got two others that I want to show you. The one on the left has that force feedback slide as well as a foot pedal, and the one on the right is also a third-party controller, but it does support both standards. And it also has force feedback, which is mostly a motor rumbling inside it. For those of you who aren't on Twitter, you might be wondering, where have all the light gun videos gone? Well, the big problem has been the TV has stopped working. It will turn on, and then after a few seconds it will turn itself off. I've not been able to work out what's going wrong with it, and to be honest, I'm too chicken to go inside myself. So I'll have to try and find either a new TV or find someone who will fix it for me. The combination of trying to find the spare time as well as the spare money to be able to do that has been the main factor in it not being fixed already. So instead of dwelling on that, let's look at some more fun things, including the Amstrad Notebook NC100. And it is sat on top of the NC200, and just in front of it is the Mega Drive Tower of Power. That's a 32X, a Mega Drive and a Mega CD. This is the bookcase that I tend to stand in front of when you see me at the beginning of the videos, so stuff tends to get moved around quite a bit depending on the topic. But as you can see, this bottom shelf is mostly cassette based games, so we've got ZX Spectrum, C64, CPC 464, a whole range of them. And over here we have all the CD32 games. Yep, two very different technologies right next to each other. And you have to love those big box CD32 games, I wish I had more. But just above it we've got the Gameboy Collection, another completely different set of technologies. And above that, well, we've got the N64, which I think might have grown quite a bit since the last video. The next shelf is a bit of a dumping ground for various cart-based machines. We've got the 2600, the Jaguar, the Atari 8-bit, the Lynx, even the Video Pack, as well as the Amstrad GX4000. And above that is yes another mishmash of games. We've got the original Xbox, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 and the 3DO. You might notice most of the PlayStation games tend to be light gun ones. Yep, that's where my main focus for that machine has been. Next up is the Sega 8-bit. We've got Master System and Game Gear games. And I managed to find quite a few boxed Game Gear games, which I'm quite proud of. Conversely, I seem to have very few boxed SNES and NES games. Those seem to be quite hard to get your hands on. It's probably because of those cardboard boxes, which wasn't a problem for the 3DS or the DS. As we can see, I've got quite a few games for those. And as we go up this bookcase, you might notice something. The left one isn't exactly level. I've tried fixing it but not had much luck, so I've ended up having to do that in posts quite often. And on this shelf, well, we've got all the Mega Drive stuff. We've got the original Mega Drive, 32X and the Mega CD. With the plastic boxes, you do tend to get far more of them nicely boxed, though as we can see I do have quite a few that don't have it. Though as we can see, that Universal Soldier box is cardboard and has managed to survive, and is a very interesting game that we'll have to cover at some point. And the top of this shelf, well, it's more Sega stuff. We've got the Dreamcast and the Sega Saturn, which I have been slowly collecting more games for. And across again, well, we've got the Gamecube Collection. I did get quite a few games from that generation. I think mostly because at one point they were quite cheap to get your hands on from the local shop. And then we've got the Wii. Yes, I picked up quite a lot of games, including the special edition Zelda Skyward Sword, mostly because I needed that Wiimote with the extension. And I'm sure no one's surprised to find there's more hardware at the top of this bookcase. We've got Ataris, we've got light guns, we've got Amigas, we've got weird knockoff devices, we've got more light guns, books, more light guns, and light gun based consoles. The Atari ST hasn't really spent that much time in front of the camera, though I have used it for a few videos. And when I got it, I wasn't really expecting to find too many games for it, so I set up a Gotek. And this floppy disk actually just sticks out the side, and it's got an OLED screen as well as 3 buttons to control it. I actually think it looks quite neat, as it means I've not cut anything on the machine itself, it just sticks out the side where a regular floppy disk would go. I also picked up this thing. It might look like an N64 controller, but it is a NES on a chip, and it also has light gun support, so of course once that TV works we'll have to check it out. And of course we've got my range of Amigas. We start off with the 600, mostly because it's probably the least used of all of them, and I think everyone will know why. I also have an original Amiga 500, which is great for those games that will only run on Kickstart 1.3, which included that Cricket Captain game we saw in an earlier video, the one with the dongle. It would only run on this machine. And then there's the Amiga 500 Plus, the machine that got me into Amigas in general, and I've had for pretty much most of my life. And then we've got the 1200, which did get its own dedicated video not too long ago. If you're interested in the upgrades and various changes I've made to this machine, please check that video out, as I was able to go into far more detail than I can go into now. And finally we've got the Amiga 4000. This one definitely needs some work, mostly because it got some horrible battery acid damage in the past. It was sent off to be recapped, cleaned and fixed up, but some of those fixes I think might be coming undone, so it'll have to be sent off again to be looked at. I hope you enjoyed that guided tour around the tech room, and if there's any games or machines you'd like me to cover in more detail, please let me know down in the comments. So until next time, I've been the Goldfish. That was a lot of stuff in a small amount of space, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can let me know down in the comments, or you can use those buttons just below. You know the ones I mean. Or if you're not sure yet, then you can check out 2 other videos that I've done that are on the screen right now. So thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.